Welcome to Shattered Reality with your hosts Kate Valentine and Fahrusha. Prepare to have your paradigms shifted and your truths questioned. And now, Shattered Reality.
Hi, welcome back to another thrilling episode of Shattered Reality. I'm Kate Valentine.
And I am Fahrusha.
And
today is September 15th, 2015.
And we have a special double whammy for you listeners out there. We have Ken Pfeifer, who, as you know, is the MUFON representative from New Jersey, as well as several other titles that he enjoys. And also, really interesting, we do have a guest who has experienced many paranormal phenomena and has been gracious enough to share them with us.
And she's a really long-term listener as well. She listens to every Shattered Reality podcast with great gusto, I would say. Well, to get into our subject today, before we introduce Mr. Pfeifer, our subject has to do with the idea of UFO flaps, a paucity perhaps of not cases in the U.S., but flaps, big flaps like Stevensville or the Phoenix Lights, or
been a long time.
Some kinds of big flaps. But it appears to me that Australia is experiencing sort of a UFO flap now, and there's a new film coming out, I believe in a few days from now, called Australian Skies. And I'm saying Australian strangely because it's Australien, like alien skies. And that movie kind of covers two men who have purportedly taken innumerable photos of UFOs flying over Australia. And a documentary filmmaker has kind of followed them and had his cameraman also taking some pretty anomalous photos. So it's worthwhile checking out. But before we start, I am going to...
just to give you a little flavor of what goes on down under.
Right, exactly. And you know about this, Kate, right?
Yeah.
The Frederick Valentine case.
Yeah.
Frederick Valentine disappeared on October 21st in 1978 in Australia, in southern Australia, very southern part of Australia. He was 20 years old. He was on a 125-mile training flight in a Cessna light aircraft over the Bass Strait in Australia that day.
He was flying by himself, too.
Yes, he was alone. And he was described as a flying saucer enthusiast. Valentine radioed Melbourne air traffic control that he was being accompanied by an aircraft about 1,000 feet above him, that his engine had begun running roughly, and finally he reported, ominously, it's not an aircraft.
Uh-oh.
There were belated reports of a UFO sighting in Australia on the night of the disappearance. However, the Associated Press reported that the Department of Transport was, of course, as officialdom is, skeptical of the UFO. But he's gone.
But he never reported an emergency.
No.
And he was in contact with air traffic control.
Yes.
And he did. I don't think air traffic control picked up the other aircraft either on radar, did they?
Well, I don't know about that, but there was a search and rescue for like 4 days from the 21st to the 25th, and they found no sign of him, nothing. And there was no known traffic at that level, and he said he could see a large unknown aircraft which appeared to be illuminated by 4 bright lights. He was unable to confirm its type, but he said it passed about 100 feet overhead and was moving at high speed. And then he reported that the aircraft was approaching him from the east and said that the other pilot might purposely be toying with him. And he said that it had a shiny metal surface. The aircraft orbiting above him had a shiny metal surface and a green light on it. Valentine reported that he was experiencing engine problems, and he told them that there were metal scraping sounds before all contact was lost.
So he did declare an emergency then. So they would have sent other planes out looking for him almost immediately.
Right.
And Cessnas are broad-winged upper, high-level winged planes, so they float. They don't go down that quickly.
No.
So I think they could have found some trace.
Some people think he staged his own disappearance. I find that unlikely.
Not at 20 years of age. I mean, he had a relatively normal life. I mean, that's a huge stage. Did he collect life insurance?
How could he?
Well, no, I mean his survivors.
I don't know. I have to say
Yeah.
that's a detail that I have not. He's well, it takes a while when you're missing and presumed dead, I believe, in most situations.
Yeah, like 7 years or something.
To
like
collect
that.
life insurance on that.
Yeah. But never any claims, nothing, just gone.
Just gone. There was
Just
no
gone.
no sighting of him. So, that is sort of the prototypical Australian case that everybody thinks of when they think of UFOs and Australia. But now I would like to introduce to you Mr. Ken Pfeifer, who is the head of New Jersey MUFON. And also, what other states, Ken, are you in charge of now?
And coordinate with.
Coordinating.
Well, actually, I'm the chief investigator for MUFON in New Jersey, and I am the state director for MUFON in Vermont and Rhode Island.
So you've got
You're
got
busy.
your work cut out for you.
Yeah, we've been very busy. I have over 500 sightings, investigations under my belt as we speak, and I'm working Vermont and Rhode Island right now, but I'm overseeing our. We have a great team of investigators in MUFON, New Jersey, and I'm just basically overseeing what they're doing and make sure they're doing everything correctly, because MUFON has already initiated some new protocols and new procedures that we have to perform for our investigation. So we're kind of working our way through that. But it's a busy time, I feel.
Is there any of these protocols or procedures we should know about? Is it interesting to the UFO enthusiasts out there?
Well, no, I would basically say that what we're doing is we're kind of expanding our research. We're getting a little bit more into the details of the investigation, and essentially we're just doing a better job on investigating a lot of these cases. And MUFON is they're starting to get their act together, and I feel that with their new show Hangar One on the History Channel, which I feel is one of the best shows on TV. I feel that they've finally come around, and they are doing what they should have been doing years ago. But with Jane Harzane is the new director for MUFON, and he seems to have reins on everything right now, and he seems to be doing a pretty good job.
Okay, well, that sounds good. So you have gathered for us some information about more recent sightings in Australia.
Yes, on my website, World UFO Photos and News.org, I come to find out that I have like 1,500 case files on my website, and I've come to find out there's about a dozen case files that have to do with Australia, and some of them are very interesting. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read a few off to you.
I would love that.
Great.
Okay, well, let me start with the first one here. The title of this would be A Growing Number of Alien Abductions in Australia. And a growing number of everyday Victorians, including farmers, nurses, and psychologists, are reporting that they've been abducted by aliens, according to the principal of the Australian Close Encounter Research Network. That's it's ACERN is what they call themselves. Mm-hmm. And the principal is Mary Rodwell. She's based in Queensland. And she said she's received between 10 and 15 reports of alien abductions from the Northern Territory every 6 months, on top of hundreds of others from around the globe. The sightings and experiences seem to have escalated. They're certainly on the rise in the Northern Territory, Ms. Rodwell said. It's mostly rural area in the Northern Territory, but I've got a few from Darwin as well. According to Mrs. Roswell, most abductees are reluctant to tell their story publicly because they fear being ridiculed, which is, what I found out. That's, a lot of people are afraid of come out of the closet and tell their friends, that they've been abducted, and that's part of the problem right now. With we are not getting as many abduction cases reported as what's happening out there.
Of course not. Yeah, people fear ridicule, don't they?
Yes, they do. I mean, 30 years ago, they probably would have thrown a straitjacket on you if you tell someone that you saw a UFO in the sky. But today, it seems to be kind of pretty cool that you saw a UFO, and quite frankly, I think a lot of people are somewhat envious of you because you were able to see something very strange and possibly from out of this world in the sky. So. A lot of people, they're afraid of being ridiculed, and even in these days, even today, I feel that there should be more people coming out admitting that they were possibly abducted by aliens. But let me continue here. It says the abductees from the Northern Territory are everyday people, farmers, nurses, and even a psychologist from Darwin. She said that's mostly not just sightings, but people who feel they've had some sort of interaction with extraterrestrial beings. I suspect the number of those abducted is a lot higher than they have than that, because the people have been experiencing this for centuries, but very rarely report it. Ms. Rodwell is a trained counselor and former nurse who supports and advocates for abductees from around the world. She said aliens took various forms according to her clients. We're talking about different types of intelligence. She said the ones the public know about are the gray beings that have been popularized, different types of humanoids or alien beings. And there's a very huge range of different types of aliens that they're coming across. Some children describe some of those beings coming into their room and feeling okay about it, not frightened or scared, but feeling in some way that they're looked after. Mm-hmm. Only 30% of those who come to me are frightened. Others feel connected on a profound level, she said. She said the abductions often take place on the road and left abductees with missing periods of times. Sometimes these abductees find themselves outside with doors locked from inside and no idea how they got there. Many are left with marks on their bodies that are fluorescent under ultra light, strange bruises and marks. Those targeted by aliens usually have family members who have also been abducted, according to Ms. Roswell. And it's often intergenerational. You'll see it right down to children who say, "Mommy, I was taken somewhere last night," she said. They talk about going through walls and energies on a spacecraft or some of the beings they see. Mr. Roswell said abductees shared similar experiences aboard spacecraft, hailing from a whole range of star systems, including Orion, Taurus, and even other galaxies as well. The common thread is that there are procedures done with genetic material taken, she said, and there seems to be an educational component where the abductees are shown things on Earth that need to change. There's a strong ecological message about not having warfare and of living most holistic lifestyles and treating each other in more of a loving way. So yeah, that's the article. I picked this up from ntnews.com.au. Megan Palin, I believe, is the one who wrote this article. Well, I thought that was very fascinating to read.
It is very fascinating, and one has to wonder about things that go on in Australia when we know that the Aborigines have a very unusual connection with the dream time, and it may be a hotspot possibly due to something regarding that. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think that myself, and as you know, Australia is a very large country, and I think we are just beginning to get a taste of what these people are experiencing out there in the outer portions of Australia. I'm sure there's places on Australia that don't even have any kind of a communication system to communicate with other towns or people. So I think there's a with the technology we have today and the cell phones and everything else, I think that this is a good way for people to connect, especially those who have experienced that alien abduction, and we're just getting more information about it all.
Yes.
But the experiences that they report are very similar to what the experiences here in the United States also have encountered.
Familial, go down through
generational,
families and that sort of thing.
And the whole thing, you guys got to be nice to each other there on Earth, or you're going to destroy your planet.
That's the contactee message from the 50s, basically.
Yeah, it's still the same.
It's still the same. And hey, here we are, angry apes with guns.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, just one other point on that. You did happen to mention how deserted large portions of the outback is, and in fact there's a large the center of Australia is a pretty desertified desert area with which is called the outback, and up in the northern territories you have the underground dwellings in the Coober Pedy of opal mines, mining precious gems, and the people live underground because it's so hot there. And so it is a place which is it's raw. Australia is it's
not a
it's
big tourist area.
It's a country, and it is a continent as well.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. So what else do you have there for us, Ken?
Yeah, we saw some great photos that you sent over.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, I did I sent some photos over from my website, worldufophotos.org. I have quite a few from Australia. But I have another article here that I picked up and I've read before, and as a matter of fact, I like this so much I posted this to my website. It's from a UFO casebook, and this is a MUFON file. So this is a MUFON case file.
Okay.
And apparently our international investigators from MUFON, this is still under investigation. But basically it says here that incredible alien UFO disc was spotted over Australia is the headline, and this was August 10th. 2015 in Brisbane, Australia. And the statement is from the witness, they say, I was walking down my interior house stairs and saw what looked like a commercial aircraft at first. I've seen UFOs in this direction before, so I watched closely. The object was a flat disc with multicolored lights flashing around it at random times. There was a hint that the aircraft was not an airplane. It flew from south to north at different speeds and then stopped. I was just about to run to get my camera when I heard a deep rumble and kept watching. The UFO started moving backwards and then stopped. After this, the object started moving slowly, upward straight into the sky, and then suddenly darted directly up, and I lost sight of it within 2 seconds. About 15 seconds after the UFO disappeared, I heard a deep rumbling sound. At this moment, I didn't think much, but then it occurred to me that I felt like something was watching me. At the very moment I am writing this, 10-15 minutes after the event, I kept constantly checking over my shoulder to see if anyone is there. I have seen UFOs before, and this one was probably the second most believable one I've ever seen. Another time, a yellow disc hovered over my house for about 20 minutes. I called it a local Air Force base, and they said a blip was showing on the radar and then disappeared in less than 60 seconds into the call. I never wrote a complete report like this one. I really hope others who saw this come forward and share their sightings as a report. I would love to see others backing up my sighting. I know what I saw. I know it was real. I have not taken any medication in the last month, and I have no drugs since then either. So, yeah, I picked this one up from, this is a MUFON case file. That was a UFO case book. So, it's basically an example as to what's happening, I would say, every day in Australia.
Yeah, it's kind of, I feel for the guy, if he was alone in his house and then he started feeling like something was watching him. That is not pleasant or...
No, it's horrible. But again, it's why people don't report it. I mean, he felt it necessary to say that he wasn't on medication, he didn't do drugs, or whatever else, that he was just sober and actually saw this. And it's so annoying to me that people always have to feel that they make that point.
Really, I mean, it's ridiculous. I've had sightings, and I have had alcohol in my life, but never when I was out having 3 or 4 drinks with
Right.
friends did I ever see a UFO. So
Right.
it's like, it doesn't
And
it
even
doesn't
if
mesh.
you had a few drinks and you saw it, I mean, it's not like you were, falling down drunk or under the influence of some crazy drug. And and if you are, you're still going to see them.
If you see,
I mean, because it's real. I mean,
you
it's
know what
not
you
like
see,
it's a
yeah.
figment of your imagination.
Yeah.
These things are real, and they do fly, and they are unidentified, and hence they are UFOs.
That's true, because if someone said to me, well, I was taking LSD, and then I would be a little bit wary. But, even someone who's had a few drinks, a few beers, and even if you're half drunk, if you see something in the sky that you've never seen before, I mean, it's there.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's still, it's just so annoying that people, you know what it is that there's never any concrete evidence. I mean, these so-called crashes are cleared up instantly by whoever it is that they send out to clean up crashes. And you can never get a piece of anything ever. And it's so frustrating. I'm sure you as an investigator are totally frustrated. Like, you have these great witness reports. You absolutely know these people absolutely saw something. And that's all you can say is they saw something. You can never say what it is. And that's annoying.
I'm excited about the MUFON. They started the STAR team. That basically means it's a bunch of seasoned investigators, and we're supposed to be the first ones out to a crash scene. So basically, I feel that MUFON is trying to get us guys out there to the crash scene before the military appears.
Great.
Well, that's good. And
so that's why we have all the equipment to do what we have to do, Geiger counters and everything, just to make sure we're not walking into a bad situation. But I've only been dispatched once to New London, Connecticut, a few years ago about a very large black triangle that flew over New London. And I was there 3 days and got a lot of talked to a lot of witnesses. But that was really the only time that I was dispatched. But we're waiting for that crash to happen. So a lot of our STAR teams will be there trying to get as much evidence and information and photos and interviews as we can, because the military will come in and shut everything down.
Well, the military is already in New London, are they not, at the submarine base? Isn't there a nuclear sub base there?
General Dynamics is in New London, Connecticut. They also have of course, the submarine pens are there, and they also have the U.S. Coast Guard Academy, and there's a big control tower airport right there in Groton, Connecticut, right across the bay from New London. And I tried to get interviews with a lot of people, especially the people in the control tower there in Groton, and they wanted nothing to do with me. Even the police, the police department and the local newspaper that is the New London Department in New London, Connecticut, they didn't want anything to do with me. So I felt that was kind of strange.
Well, the military that goes in does not have the typical uniform either. I mean, it doesn't seem that they're attached to the Coast Guard or the Army or the Navy. They
In the
seem
typical
like their
crash
own,
sighting, you mean? Like
they're their own special division of whatever it is. And
well, I'm wondering, because of all the interest over nuclear sites in the past, whether a black triangle over New Groton and in New London and Groton, whether they had any interest in the nuclear submarines that base themselves there.
You don't know.
That's what I thought. I thought this was a perfect location. A few of those were going to come down and investigate an area. This would be the one. As a matter of fact, they also have a nuclear plant, which is only a few miles away that sits on the bay there. This was the ideal spot for UFOs to come over. But all the people I interviewed, they claim that they've never seen anything strange in the sky. And the guy who reported this large, humongous triangle. Of course, this was during nighttime, and he was an educated man. He was a business manager, and I went there and interviewed him, and I felt that he was very credible and had no reason to make this story up. It was just it just seems to me that some people see these things and some people don't, and quite frankly, if you're not looking up at the sky at night, you're not going to see anything.
Yeah, that's true, especially with light pollution in city areas. People everybody's looking down at their cell phones and nobody's looking up, and there's a lot of light pollution anyway with the spotlights and so forth, the street lights.
With the flap in Australia, it's going on now, and with MUFON trying to, it is refining its techniques through the START team and so on. Can you collaborate with the Australians? Is there any international collaboration? Since the sightings seem very similar. I mean, the description of the abductees are same as the abductees here.
Yeah, collaboration. I would, it's really kind of hard to say. MUFON, sometimes they do their own thing, and sometimes we investigators are the last to know about it, or we read about it that this and that is happening, and I'm not really sure if there's any kind of collaboration with Australia concerning MUFON.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure, maybe not on an official level, but I'm sure investigators share their stories and their techniques. Everybody does that's interested in this, because everybody who's interested in it wants to know what the hell's going on. And nobody ever can find out. It's very frustrating.
Indeed it is.
Yeah.
And
I sent you a photo. I had number one on a photo, and that photo was attached to this sighting report. I'd like to tell you guys.
Sure, go ahead.
It says here, alien craft photographed over Oakley, Australia. Now, I want to admit my ignorance about Australia's. I'm not really that familiar with Australia. I know where Sydney is and Melbourne, but
the geography, you're saying, basically.
It's too large, and
it's a continent. It's the only country that's a continent. Yeah.
Yeah, but this happened on June 12th, 2015, a few months ago, in Oakley, Australia. Now it says here, as an object the photographer believed to be a UFO was spotted flying over Oakley at 6:30 a.m. this morning. Field Quip employee Greg Young decided to capture the beauty of the sunrise by taking a photo, and it wasn't until he zoomed in on his iPhone that he noticed a strange object. Mr. Young said he looked back at the sky and noticed a triangular object flying through the clouds, followed by a dark blue trail. Now, on the photo, the object looks white, but there is a triangular shape to it. It was all a bit weird because a few moments earlier, me and my coworker saw some bright flashing lights from the east, and we couldn't work out what they were, Mr. Young said. Then we saw this thing, and it just made for a really odd morning. I don't believe in aliens or anything like that, but it definitely looked like something, he said. Field Quip operations manager Darwin Mulger said he did not believe in aliens, but he was intrigued by the object. I completely disbelieve in aliens and UFOs, but I did find it strange, Mr. Auger said. Greg came in to show me the photo, and by the time I went back outside, it was gone. He said it wasn't traveling very fast and was flying silently, but it had disappeared within a minute. So that's from a UFO Casebook article I picked up off of Billy Booth, and I got the photo, and it's very interesting.
Yeah. That is very believable. The gentleman says he had no belief in UFOs, but he certainly knows he saw something. And you have, and that corresponds to one of the photos that we are going to be displaying on ShatteredRealityPodcast.com. And do you have another one for us, or shall we wrap it up?
Oh, I got one more article here, if you like.
Good. Yes, go for it.
This was very interesting. This was frightening close encounter in South Australia. Now, do you guys have time? It's only take about a minute.
No, that's fine.
We just didn't know whether you had another one, and we welcome it.
Okay. Now this one here, this was February 28, 2015.
So recent.
York Peninsula, South Australia. And the article says here, came out to my Nana and Papa's for tea, and they invited 3 friends over, which they live on a farm in the middle of Hardwick Bay in Warrola, York Peninsula. I had just finished my tea, and I made a phone call to my friends from school outside of the office. All of a sudden, it was getting a little breezy, and I said on the phone to my friends, it's getting a little windy, I'm getting a little cold, it is windy here, where are you? And cold. then I looked up at the trees because I could not hear the wind becoming, because I could hear the wind becoming more stronger. Then I looked at my phone again because it vibrated, and then I heard like a whoosh, like a whirlwind was happening. I looked up, and an object was hovering over the trees. It had yellow and orange lights wrapped around its shape in a disc form. Then a beam of a blue light and white came down, not all the way, just a little bit, around 70 to 80 centimeters from under the object off the ground, and it kept hovering. I said, I'll call you back soon. Then ended the call. I was screaming because I had no idea what it was going to do to me, because I had no idea what it was. I didn't know it was something was going to jump out of it, or if the object was going to move towards me and make the beam of light, which was located beneath the object, shine upon me. I was thinking of the documentary that I saw on TV not long ago, where the object beam of light shined upon these people, and they were nowhere to be seen. The light from underneath fainted, and it moved slowly east, and I ran inside and got all the adults. And I says, come quickly, there's something in the sky that's moving away. It was directly in front of me while I was talking on the phone. Did you hear me screaming? Quickly, and they all came running out of the house to see it. When I got out there, it was moving very slowly away from where I was standing. As we watched it, we were trying to decide what it was by the lights and shape and the movement. That is, I said, UFO, its lights all switched. Then I said UFO, and its lights all switched off. Now it's nowhere to be seen. Now I feel so scared because I had no idea where it came from and how I got there, and then it just came out of nowhere. I have no idea what to do. I just don't want to come. I just don't want it to come back. I definitely don't want to be abducted. Now I know we are not the only ones on this planet by the looks of it. So that's something I picked up. That's a MUFON case file. So that was a very interesting. These things seem to scare people, and quite frankly, it would probably scare the heck out of me if something was that close to me.
Can't blame them, and
because there's some nasty tales out there of what happens when you do get whooped up in the blue light.
Well, the idea that they just disappear gives rise to the idea that maybe they're around more often than we realize. I mean, there could be one right over your house right now, Ken, for all we know, and you might not be able to see it.
Just
That's
kidding.
true. I'm not looking in the sky right now, so you can't see these things unless you're looking up, that's for sure.
But they seem to be able to do cloaking. Now, years ago, as Kate was telling me, we never thought about a cloaking device as anything but science fiction. Mm-hmm. But today, our own aircraft are learning these techniques of cloaking, that it's being engineered so that our own American aircraft can be cloaked. So it's not so far-fetched that a UFO might be right above. As I said, we're kind of kidding you here, one right over your house right now.
Oh, yeah.
But it could be cloaked, and you would never know, even if you were looking up.
Well, with today's technology and what we're doing today, and a lot of things that we don't know about, I've come to realize that anything is possible these days.
Yeah.
Well, Ken, it's been great. Thank you so much. And you want to repeat your website addresses for us so that our listeners can...
my main website, I have close to 9,000 UFO photos. Strange Gallery, I have Mars Gallery, Moon Gallery, a lot of things I've discovered, but it's worldufophotos.org. And my news website, I have approximately about 1,500 articles on there, and you'll see these articles that I just read off to you. Mm-hmm. That is worldufophotosannews.org. So if you get a chance, check it out. And I want to thank you guys. You're real sweethearts for Fahrusha and Kate, thanks for having me on, and I look forward to being on your show in the near future.
I look forward to having you, and so...
Me too, and great talking to you again, Kate.
Yeah, Ken's great. Thanks so much, and bye now.
Yeah, have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Hi, Roxanne. This is Kate Valentine.
And this is Fahrusha. So, Roxanne, you are one of our listeners, and you have graciously... agreed to come on and tell us about
your experiences.
Yeah, two of your unusual experiences, kind of three, because you have a two-part UFO experience, and then you have a kind of a Man in Black experience. So where do you want to start?
Well, I'm not sure how the Man in Black fits in, except that it happened to the same person I was living with when I saw the UFO. So I don't know if strange things just happened to Frank or how that fits in. So I guess you could say that happened first, and then the UFO sighting happened a little bit later, the same year, really.
Okay, well, lay it on us.
Yeah.
All right.
But you are right, though. Some people tend to experience things very frequently and others not at all. And I don't know. No one really knows what that connection is either. There's so many things we don't know about this.
Except to say, in this case, as I believe it, it was always not just experienced by Frank. I mean, Frank may have experienced things on his own that we don't know about and we can't go into. But the interesting thing is that the UFO experience that Roxanne had was multiple people,
right.
And the Man in Black experience was Roxanne and Frank and a number of other folks, right?
Right. Yeah. Actually, a large group of people. The first incident. The second one, we were camping out at a festival, and it was very packed, and everybody around us saw him. In fact, they made the guy leave. Finally, somebody had common sense and ran him off.
Oh, wow. Well, why don't you start with the first one? Give us a little background on the you have a friendship with this gentleman, and you're traveling with him. Start with the first Man in Black experience, then.
Okay. Well, Frank used to be a neighbor, and I used to live in this little street out in the country, about 30 miles from Philadelphia, and we were all friends, and I knew his wife, who then became his ex-wife, and he followed to Boulder, which is how I ended there. And, it was just a whole group of people. So that summer, this would have been, I guess, summer of '79, I graduated school and I decided to just camp all summer. I wasn't ready to look for a job. So now and then different people would come with me, and Frank came with me on the trip. He wanted to go see this commune up in upstate New York, which sounded like a nice adventure, nice place to camp. So we went up there. And it was beautiful. They had a lot of land, a big farmhouse, and so forth. And that evening, while we were sitting around a campfire with the whole group of people and eating marshmallows and things like that, and generally talking and laughing, we suddenly see this really strange guy come wandering up the lane. He, walking. It was a place it was hard to get to without a car. And he was very strange. He was all dressed in black. He had a long black trench coat, and it was hot. I mean, this was probably July or August, something like that. And he looked scruffy, like maybe he was sleeping rough, maybe homeless, kind of raggedy. He wasn't old, maybe middle-aged, black hair. He just had an evil air about him. I don't know a better way to put it. So nobody knew him. Nobody knew who he was or anything. And they just kind of tried to ignore him. And he went from one person to another. I don't know if he was saying things to all of them, but maybe. And then he sidled up to Frank and began saying things like, "Well, I could kill you if I wanted to."
Oh, wow.
That's lovely.
Right.
Oh, wow.
A variety of very frightening threats. And as I recall, Frank said, "Yeah, I believe you." And we had both worked with a lot of psych patients in various settings, so we sort of had these built-in responses. And as soon as he could, Frank sneaked away, and it was dark, and we went up to where we had pitched our tents in a back pasture and didn't use our flashlights, so the guy didn't find us, and we left as soon as we could the next day.
Jesus, wow,
I
that's
know.
strange.
Yeah, that's the first time you saw him. And just to go back for one little second, something that you mentioned, you have been in your life a psychiatric nurse for the criminally insane. Is that not right?
Yeah, that was most of my career.
Wow.
So you were familiar with this type of character and sense
Well,
that there was something going on that wasn't within the range of the usual.
Oh yeah, this is the sort of guy that when you get somebody like this, it comes on a unit, the aides come up and say, "Oh, they used to call him a psychopath, a punk." I don't know why, but that was the lingo. Each institution had different, uh, things they'd call things, but and everybody knew what that meant. Somebody
Right.
extremely dangerous to just watch every second because there was just
You
know.
just never knew when they'd go. So that
Yeah.
was your first experience, and I guess you figured that maybe it was just some crazy loon in the neighborhood, and
just
that's it.
one-off anomalous thing. So
Yeah.
what happened next then, Rox?
Well, we went a couple weeks. I took Frank back back to Pennsylvania, and one of the other friends in the neighborhood was going to a folk festival that they have in West Virginia. So we decided to take Nancy along, my other friend, and Frank, and we all went down there. And this was very, very far back in the mountains, and but we weren't by ourselves. The town was just packed with people. They were square dance in the middle of the street and fiddle festival and
Oh,
all this
sounds
kind of thing.
nice.
Yeah, sounds like we ought to go.
Yeah, I think they still have it every year down there. And so we put up my little tent and everything. And, in the middle of this crowd, there was hardly room to even put it up. And, it starts to get dark and everybody's having a good time. And all of a sudden, I look up and there's this guy again.
Oh my God.
The trench coat man, right?
Oh wow.
And
That's freaky.
is that freaky? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like 3
really.
states away. You have
Yeah.
to travel through 3 states at least.
Yeah.
And he immediately zeroes in on Frank, and Frank was a little faster this time. He immediately got away as fast as he could, and he was so upset he refused to even stay in his tent. He went into town and got a room, and it was starting to just pour cats and dogs, so I zipped up in my tent and kept my axe with me. But the guy didn't seem to be interested in me and noticed me. But the next morning when I got up, he had bothered other people. He had wandered all around camp, apparently, buttonholing people and whispering threats. So somebody finally kicked him out. He had no ticket, camping permit. It was the same thing as the first incident, as though he had just been hitchhiking by, saw a bunch of people, and wandered in.
So strange. Though,
Was he dressed the same?
Identical.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
and we even discussed, could there be 2 of them?
Oh,
I don't know.
twins.
No
Wow.
explanation.
Well, yeah,
No.
but it's so far away and in such a short period of time that has to really have freaked Frank out completely.
Oh yeah, we were both.
That's weird. Yeah.
It's just the sort of thing that if you hadn't seen it and somebody told you that, if Frank had come and told me this story and I hadn't been there and seen it, I don't know if I would have believed it.
Well, that's exactly the problem with all these anomalous things, is that they are so unbelievable that they're unbelievable, and for the people that experience them, they're certainly not unbelievable. I mean, and really. So, was there a third encounter?
Yeah, there are actually several more.
Real? Okay, this guy's trailing you then.
This gets really
Yeah.
Yes, and it never even occurred to me until I was making notes for doing this podcast that maybe this guy was some sort of entity and not really a person, because I don't know the explanation or why he'd follow Frank. Frank was a very mundane guy, not psychic, not into anything that you would think would like black magic or something that would attract something. So this was like, okay, August or something. So later that fall, Frank moved to Colorado, and then I followed, and maybe around November or something, we rented this little house in Longmont, which was a little cow town out in the prairie, about half an hour east of Boulder. It's all very tiny in those days, not many people around. So this was fine, and we were getting along fine, and Frank had this habit of, being a hippie type, picking up hitchhikers. And I always said, I don't think you should do that.
Good.
I don't think you should hitchhike either, but that didn't faze him. Nobody listens,
Uh-huh.
So one night he comes home really late, and he is just pale as a ghost. He's scared half to death. He said he had been hiking at a park along the foothills in Boulder, which is beautiful parks there. And it was getting dark, and he saw somebody hitchhiking, and he picked them up without getting a good look at the guy. And you probably guessed it.
Oh, no.
Same outfit, the whole 9 yards?
The whole 9 yards.
Holy cow.
Oh.
God, that sounds like something out. What was that old show with the, you want to see a real scary, Twilight Zone.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Want to see a
Zone.
real scary face?
Oh, and I forgot a part. When Frank went to Boulder, he didn't drive. He hitchhiked across the country.
Uh-huh.
And he told me when I saw him in Boulder, he was way out in the desert somewhere along the way, like New Mexico, some absolute middle of nowhere. And he saw somebody a ways down the road, like it's a dot, somebody else hitchhiking. So he went over to say hello.
Mm-hmm.
It was the guy.
Oh, my God. Oh, that's very strange.
And he thought if he fortunately a ride came up right then. He'd been waiting for hours, and he said he thought the guy would have killed him if he hadn't got a ride. I mean, who would ever have found him?
Yeah, well, true. Wow.
Yeah.
And did he say anything other than these vague threats? I mean, did he?
No. If Frank knew anything about the guy or thought to ask him anything, he never told me.
Yeah.
And the last time, which was by the park in Boulder there, you said something to me about the guy having scissors or something?
Right. So then finally, we get to Boulder. This incident happens, and Sooner gets in the car with Frank. He pulls out these gigantic scissors.
Oh my God!
Shears, and starts snipping in front of Frank's face and yelling about how I'm going to cut your hair off, I'm going to cut your beard, I'm going to cut you, I'm going to get you now. And Frank believed him.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't like it was like, oh no, you wouldn't do that. So he was still in the park, wasn't completely out of it. He just pulled the car over to the side, took his keys and ran. Left the guy in his car.
Oh my God.
Well, I would do that too. There was no getting him out of the car. I mean, you can't fight somebody with a weapon like that. So, so the next day, I took him back to get his car. I waited till daylight.
Yeah.
And it was fine. Guy was gone. We never saw him again.
Wow.
But you did see some UFOs.
Yes, we did.
Wow. So you've had the sort of this man in black, and then UFOs sort of around you.
Yeah, I don't know. Does that count as a man in black?
Well, he was a humanoid, and
he sort of appeared out of nowhere.
And he was dressed in black.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, that's a man in black.
He's not the governmental-looking man in black, but he's a demonic-looking man in black, I would say.
We thought he was a devilish thing or something.
You sort of know when something's like a little bit less than human or a little bit different than human. I mean, there are obviously, there are people that are totally insane, and that's one thing. But then there's also just not human.
Not
there's
right. Something off.
Yeah.
Some regular thing off.
Yeah.
It makes your hair stand. You feel like a how dogs' hair stands up in a ridge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It gives you that back of the neck sort of.
Yes.
Like you just sense that there's something really much stranger and more threatening
than normal.
So
you were out in Colorado. You were at this, what is it, Larchmont? Did you say?
Longmont.
Longmont, and you were in the kitchen, as I recall it, washing dishes. And what happened?
Well, Frank and a few friends were out back, once again, we were barbecuing. It seems like we did a lot of that. And he came running in the kitchen and said, come quick, there's something, you got to see this, you won't believe it. So I by the time I got out there, I thought, maybe there's an elk or something had come by because he saw wildlife there now and then. And they're all staring at the sky. And they were right. I couldn't believe it. There were these flocks of bright discs that just looked exactly like full moons, the same color and glow. And there were groups of them, maybe half a dozen or so in each group. And there were several groups. And they were just swooping exactly all together like swallows. And
But they were round, disc-like, right?
perfectly round, right? Exactly like a full moon, same shape, same color, exactly like that. And they didn't turn on their sides or anything as they swooped. They just remained like full circle. No sound, no anything like that. And I I was flabbergasted. I didn't even believe in UFOs. I certainly wasn't looking for anything. And then as we watched, we were there for quite a while. They just suddenly blinked out, and the rest of the gang was saying, "Boy, you should have hurried. You missed the mothership." And I thought, oh, I think I can pass on this. you know, I don't want to go for a ride or anything. So I started keeping an eye out on the sky after that. And, we were far enough out in the prairie at that time. It was not built up, and you could just see the sky unbelievable the way you can out in the deserts,
Cool.
Yeah, very black, very bright. And a few weeks later, I was out 9 or 10 or so to bring in the clothes off the line, and I looked up. I don't know if I was just always looking up right then, and there was the mothership, and it was hanging directly over our house. There were other houses in the neighborhood. We had fairly decent yards, but it was over ours, and it was either really gigantic or it was just really close. There was nothing to judge against,
But it was about the size of your home.
Oh, much bigger than that.
Really?
Describe the object.
It was circular or triangular?
It was oval, circular, maybe slightly oval, and it looked like it took up about half the block.
Wow.
It was big, and there was a little ring of lights around it, or I thought maybe there were even windows lit from inside, and it didn't make any noise, and the bottom of it had what looked to me like maybe a force field of some sort, or some kind of it was sort of like bluish, it looked like a flame, like the way a flame looks, but it wasn't flaming, it was just kind of glowing.
So there was sort of like in the air, like when you see heat rising up from something, it distorts the atmosphere a little bit, like that.
No heat. It
No
was
heat.
the bottom of the ship glowing.
Wow.
Sort of, I would guess electromagnetic, maybe.
Glowing blue. But blue.
Right.
Wow.
Bluish with a little bit of purple, different shades of blue. And no sound. There weren't any aerials. It looked very much like the ship in Encounters of a Third Kind, which hadn't come out yet. This was 1980.
So the show hadn't come out yet, but it kind of looked like that craft in.
Yes, very much. Yes.
So that was the last you saw of the UFOs.
Well, the little UFOs were there too, with it swooping around, and they swooped around for a while, and then they just suddenly looked like they went into it maybe, and they disappeared, and then suddenly it just blinked out, and that was that. And
that big craft just blinked out too?
That's all it did too. Yes, it just blinked out.
Wow, that's interesting.
Which just between you and me, Kate, and our audience who has listened to the first part of the show, was what I had said to Ken Pfeifer. These things could be around us at any time, any given time, and we just do not know that they're there.
Right, because they're silent, and then they can be
blink out.
Yeah,
right. They can cloak themselves apparently.
Thanks, that was
very
the word
quickly.
I was looking for.
So, Roxanne, whatever happened to Frank?
Yeah, is he still around?
That's a good question.
Uh-huh.
I eventually moved to Boulder with a different friend, and then he came and needed a place, and he lived with us for a couple more years, and nothing else.
He just sort of went his way, and
yeah, I finally lost touch with him. Although it's true that house in Boulder, we had some odd things happen. Everybody thought it was sort of haunted, but I don't think it had to do with Frank. It never occurred to me it had anything to do with him. I
don't know. I mean, I'm hearing a lot about Frank.
Yeah, that never occurred to me.
Could have been poltergeist activity.
Yeah. Some people really attract it, and not that they want to. it just they have that misfortune of having that, whatever that is in their persona, that other things zoom in on.
Right, right.
That would explain a lot of the mishaps, Frank.
A crack in his cosmic egg.
Yeah.
He was a bit of a cracked egg himself.
Yeah.
Not dangerous, but
Well, you know, when enough of these things happen to you, you tend to get a little bit odd yourself. You know, I mean, you start to think, is it me or?
Well, that's true. We just thought that he was one of these people who couldn't do anything right.
Uh-huh.
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, one thing he did when we lived there in Longmont, he bored the neighbor's lawnmower, lost the gas cap, ran over our hose, and then I made him patch the hose, and he patched a different hole and didn't notice that it was still in two pieces.
Well, I guess that qualifies. Well, Roxanne, I want to thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. I'm sure that our listeners will be as fascinated by you as any of the other people we've had on. It's really quite an interesting story, and we can't begin to thank you, and we hope you continue to listen to Shattered Reality.
Yeah, and you know, it's great that you come forward with this, too, because the more people that do, the more we're going to hear. If a lot of people don't come forward, then people just sit in their own homes and say, well, it was weird, and maybe I'm weird. But when you have thousands of people saying the same thing, then you also tend to come forward. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Roxanne.
Thank you for having me on. I'm
it's a pleasure.
delighted to have this story heard.
Okay. Take care now.
Thanks
bye-bye
again.
now.
Bye-bye.
So here we are at the end of another Shattered Reality show.
Wow. Though she certainly had her reality shattered for a while. That's very frightening, though. You know, I mean, we kid about it, but it's scary.
Well, I think that we laugh a little bit because of the nervousness that it elicits in us. It's we don't giggle because it's funny, but it makes you nervous, like, what's going to happen to us?
Yeah, it's true, because these are obviously just, you know, your ordinary, not ordinary, but, you know, your average person.
Everyday people, and the people that Ken had described.
Right, exactly.
Was one fellow was a mechanic, the other was some teenager at home.
Without any relationship between them either.
No.
I mean, it wasn't like, you know, I mean, some are intergenerational, but a lot of times people who don't know each other experience the same thing. And we can't all be crazy.
That's true. Well,
maybe. I don't know.
Speak for yourself. I don't know. But we have some interesting guests upcoming. In a couple of weeks, we're going to have Mr. Ron Felber, who has written a fascinating book. I believe it's called The Mojave Incident, which has to do with two individuals, a couple, back in the late 80s who were abducted. And so I'm sure you'll all be looking forward to that.
That's the Mojave Incident. And, you know, this isn't a call-in show, but we'd love to hear your comments on this, and you can always post them on the website. And that would be a great thing, because I'd like to hear what you're thinking. I mean,
absolutely.
You know,
and
Fahrusha and I know what we're thinking, but
if they have an experience they want to share, as Roxanne did, that would be wonderful. And finally, let's thank the man.
Who is that?
The man over there.
Oh, Mr. Bill?
Mr. Bill.
Oh,
yes,
no, Mr. Bill.
Yes, who is our trusty and trusted engineer who's doing such a great job for us. Yeah. We thank him. And
we hope you tune in next time for
Shattered Reality.